Alright, welcome to my presentation about Dark. Dark is the meta right now in VGC Regulation H in 2026. The 2026 season, I mean, it's still 2025. But yeah, Dark is very good. Let's get into it. I want to really go a bit faster because I recorded a whole 22-minute yap on this presentation and I didn't turn my microphone on, so let's do this a bit let's do this quicker. Alright, let's do it. So what is Dark? Dark stands for Dragonite Ursaluna Gholdengo, specifically the Blood Moon Ursaluna. And it's a core that came to prominence in the later half of VGC Regulation H in 2025. So that was the 2025 season, the first 4 months of the format. And they're very strong, I think mainly because of the lower power level. Like, if you look at the restricted formats like in Regulation G and Regulation I, you didn't see any Dark. You saw them individually, but you didn't see them all together at once as like a meta-defining core. But now that the legendaries like Cataract's Ice Shadow, Zamazenta, Kyogre, Terapagos, all these strong guys, and the normal legendaries, not restricted, like Ogapon and Urshifu, are gone. These guys can come out and become meta Pokemon. So Dark is a very meta core right now. I'm just gonna refer to it as Dark for the rest of this video. So yeah, now you know what Dark is referring to. So 3 reasons why Dark is so strong: basic type synergy, good offensive combos, and good meta relevant matchups. So as you can see, the usage stats here are really good. Gholdengo's at the top. This is not actually ranked like from 1 to 6. Number 1 is actually Archaludon, but as you can see, Gholdengo's number 2, Dragonite's number 3, Ursaluna Blood Moon number 7. So they're all top 10 in usage, always very consistent, very strong even individually. And today I'll be explaining why together they are such a good team. So first, type synergy. If you guys know the type chart, this should be quite self-explanatory, you know. But let's get into it. Gholdengo has a Ghost Steel type. He hates Incineroar, let's just say that. And Ursaluna Blood Moon, being a special attacker, doesn't get affected by the Incineroar. So you can hit the Incineroar with those Earth powers and get rid of Incineroar, who normally offensively and defensively threatens Gholdengo, because Flare Blades and Knockoff both deal massive damage into Gholdengo. And Gholdengo can't really touch Incineroar because Fire type resists Make It Rain and Dark type resists Shadow Ball. So yes, Ursaluna Blood Moon covers that matchup. Another thing that Gholdengos really hate is Earthquake. So common Earthquake user, the normal Ursaluna, Dragonite does well defensively into as a flying type. So Dragonite offers that defensive switch in into Gholdengo into those ground type moves. And lastly, obviously Gholdengo does not very good into other faster Gholdengo. So let's say you're running a slower Gholdengo and the faster Gholdengo, like Timid 252 plus, like 252 plus Gholdengo, 149 speed. Or you have those Choice Scarf Gholdengo, which I find quite surprisingly common nowadays. They can just hit you the Shadow Ball, and being a Ghost type, you will take a lot of damage. So you also have a defensive switching into that with the Ursaluna. As a normal type, Ursaluna can take those Shadow Balls and fire back with more Earth powers. So yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about Earth Power in this video because Earth Power really helps this core offensively as a ground type attack. So next, let me take a breath. I talk too fast. So I cannot, bro. My throat is hurt. My throat hurting is like hurt like hell, bro. Okay, let's move on. So Ursaluna Blood Moon, my goat. So Ursaluna Blood Moon, first of all, does not really good into water and grass type attackers, obviously as a ground type, because it's a ground type and it's weak to those types. Specifically, I want to talk about both Basculegion and the Rillaboom because those are the most threatening grass and water types in the format right now. Dragonite does well into both of them. Dragonite can resist a few hits from the Basculegion and the Rillaboom despite dropping its own defense with Skill Shot. Once you get 1 or 2 speed boosts, you can kind of basically guarantee that you get rid of those Rillabooms and Basculegions. And the other side that I want to talk about is Sneasler and Alolan Ninetale. As an ice type and as a fighting type, they obviously threaten Ursaluna. And Gholdengo just eats them for breakfast, so that's your basic defensive offensive synergy right there with the Blood Moon. Alright, next let's talk about the Dragonite. So Dragonite is obviously a very strong Pokemon in its own right, but he has some defensive holes that you can poke through. Firstly, obviously, A9. Ice types victimize Dragonite, and the Gholdengo helps with that matchup. Being a Steel type, those strong Make-It Rains can deal with any ice type that you potentially may be worried about. Other Dragon types do well into Dragonite because I guess Dragonite before Scale Shot could be considered one of those slower Dragon types, especially compared to Hydreigon, Dragapult, who else? Garchomp, all those guys. So Gholdengo as a Steel type helps defensively into those matchups. And lastly, Sand teams, where the Tyranitar really likes to come out and, kick rock slide. And Dragonite as a flying type obviously does not do well into that. So Ursaluna is also a defensive switch in for that. The three guys in Dark cover each other defensively quite well. And I would say that Ursaluna can break through those Sand teams because they have a lot of ground weak Pokemon on those usually. Mainly the Excadrill and the Tyranitar. But let's move on. Basically, you get the point. All three of them work extremely well together type-wise. Next, let's talk about the offensive synergy, okay? This is quite basic. I would say that Ursaluna and Gholdengo generally, they are slow, more bulky attackers that have to set up or sit on the field for a very long time and deal damage. So, when you're facing those matchups where the opposing Pokemon perpetually outspeed your Gholdengo and your Ursaluna, it can be quite hard to deal damage because it will just take 1 or 2 turns for them to take you out, and you don't get much value, right? So for these types of teams where you're very very slow but you do a lot of damage, you want some speed control. And Dragonite can be this speed control. With multi-skill, you are basically guaranteed to get a Tailwind up. And also Dragonite can boost his own speed just with the Scale Shot, which, like I wrote down here, Scale Shot increases speed by 1 stage. I wanted to prove my point that Ursaluna is really quite slow. 52 is not very good in the speed department, but also not that slow that you can reliably use Ursaluna in Trick Room, right? Because Ursaluna is still faster than the normal Ursaluna. The one on all fours. This one's the one on 2 legs. The one on all fours is, I believe, 2 points slower. So in Trick Room, you're kind of losing into that matchup. And it's also slower than other Trick Room threats like Torkoal, Hatterini. So more commonly, you would see Ursaluna paired with the Tailwind. So Dragonite is that Tailwind user. And I know it says Inner Focus here, but just imagine it's multi-skill. Which if you guys didn't know, cuts any damage in half. But the other point that I want to bring out is that all three of these guys offensively put a lot of pressure. Obviously, like I said, they have very good offensive coverage, but also their pressure that they put is just so oppressive. You have 1 strong physical attacker and 2 strong special attackers, so this core doesn't completely get run over by Incineroar, right? And they just cover each other's matchups really well. So no matter what matchup you face, you're gonna have some way to deal massive damage to them, which is why Dark is so strong. And finally, let's talk about some meta-relevant matchups. So we first have Sneasler. As you can see here, I hate Sneasler. Sneasler represents everything that we hate in VGC. He encourages gambling. He encourages skillless gameplay. So this is mainly the reason why I love Dark, because it does so well with Sneasler. But why? Gholdengo has a very good matchup with Sneasler. Defensively, Poison types don't affect Steel types. Fighting types don't attack Ghost types. They don't affect Ghost types. So Sneasler just sucks into Gholdengo. And it also covers for Ursaluna's weakness to Sneasler. So yeah, those basically Gholdengo just bullies Sneasler and helps you win against the plethora of Sneasler teams that you can find on ladder nowadays. or just in the format in general. And then another thing that you want to watch out for the Sneasler is the sash, right? Because the sash is quite annoying. You can't really always take out Sneasler with one hit. If you're playing the Ursaluna Blood Moon, like you take a lot of damage, you fire Earth Power and they still survive. That's very annoying, right? So with the Dragonite, you have a guaranteed KO on the sash Sneasler with Skill Shot. No matter if it's 4 or 5 hits, if you run, I think, max attack, you'll always get a kill. So that's just what is very good about Duck. They all cover each other's matchups into Sneasler. And 3 of them as a whole, you basically can invalidate Sneasler on the other team and then focus on the guys that are supporting Sneasler. Basically, I was trying to say that you can make Sneasler a non-factor, yeah. And make Sneasler not annoying. So secondly, we have the Psyspam. Now, I didn't really order the points by relevance, but not all Dragonites run Ice Spinner. But let's say your Dragonite happens to have Ice Spinner, you can remove the terrain and basically invalidate Psyspam. Taking away terrain is just a very, very handy against Psyspam teams. Now Gholdengo again has a naturally good matchup into the Sneasler and DD lead, which gives teams a lot of problems nowadays in this format. Sneasler and DD is one of the most feared leads, I would say. Or just for some teams, it can be really hard to deal with. Gholdengo does well. And then basically, you invalidate that lead because the lead is too dangerous, too risky to play into your team. Because if they do, your Gholdengo has the opportunity to set up while they get into a better position. So yeah, Gholdengo kind of shuts down that lead. And the Dragonite and the AV Ursaluna does well into Sun mode, especially if you're running like a... Wow, it's thundering outside, but... Yeah, so especially if you're running an AV Terra Water Ursaluna, or just any defensive Terra that resists fire, you basically stack up your double resistances. You have 2 resistances to fire. You can kind of invalidate those toggles, fire back huge damage, and shut down those Sun modes that really like to round out those Psyspam teams. Like Sun Psyspam is really prevalent. So I think Duck has quite a good matchup, and that's why it's so strong. Predator-prey relationship, If the prey is there's a large number of prey, which basically means there's a large number of Psyspam teams on the market right now, then Duck will rise in relevance because when the Predator has more food, the Predator population will increase. So yes, Duck is really strong right now because Psyspam is everywhere. Lastly, Arch Rain. One of these modes that the Archaludon Rain teams like to go for is you have a multi-hit support partner like Loaded Dice Boom or Population Bomb or Beat Up Mouse Hold, and just spam those stamina boosts and sweep through the opposing team just by staying alive very long with your defensive boosts or body press. So one thing that you can do against these teams, which is why Duck is relatively strong into those kind of strategies, is because Dragonite can run Haze, which obviously removes all stat changes and resets all stats to 0, which basically makes the mouse hope if Archaludon thing kind of not good into your team if you have Haze Dragonite. Dragonite can also tank water type attacks from those supporting partners like Pelipper and Basque Legion, so that's a plus, I guess. And with enough support, like if you want to support your Gholdengo with like a Mungus, for example, you can really just set up with Nasty Plot and break through those AV Archaludons that might give your team trouble. Yeah, so not to mention Ursaluna, even though it's a ground type, you are very vulnerable to those water type attackers. But with the right support and in the right position, you can deal quite a lot of damage to the Archaludon, which is one of the main threats of these rain teams. And Terra Water Gholdengo obviously does have a very good matchup spread into this team, especially after you've taken care of the Electro Shot Archaludon. So I'm not saying that this team is like 100% when you're going into this matchup you will always win or you will always be like have the upper hand. I'm just saying that There are some strong points that Dark has into Archrain, and since Archrain is so prevalent right now, I think it's important to mention. So anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you guys learned why Dark is so strong right now. If you would like, pick up a Dark team. I left some in the description. I will credit the creator obviously. But go on ladder, try Dark and tell me how it goes.